sentence connectors. Okay, so let's read the directions. Select the phrase connector from the given 3 options which can be used to form a single sentence from the 2 sentences given below, implying the same meaning as expressed in the statement sentences. Yeah. So having said that, fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings. Politics has to fix its own problems through dialogues, if possible, using logical extrapolations of troublesome arguments. Any word that you probably don't understand? I'm sure you don't understand extrapolations. Have you come across that word before? Extrapolation. So when you say something is extrapolated, which means you are assuming that, you know, the current standard of doing things will not undergo any change, and you arrive at a statement, right? Okay, let's go back, let's understand the context. So hopefully all of you understand the directions, right? What is expected of you to do. From A, B, C, if I join these 2 sentences, right? This is sentence 1 and this is sentence 2, from politics to arguments, right? So if I join these 10 sentences using these 3 connectors, will it make logical sense? Will it be meaningful? Right? And it says clearly, after the 3 options, at the end, if you see, it says pick out the option which, when used to start a sentence, combines both the above sentences into one. So there are different types when it comes to sentence connectors and phrases. Sometimes there will be a specific direction saying use this only to start. So when I use this option to start and then connect these 2 sentences, it should make logical sense. That's the direction given, right? Sometimes it will say if you have to use it in between, right, in the middle or even at the end. So let's look at it. So paying attention to the questions. So if I start this question saying achieving court ruling through, let's start this question, right? Achieving court rule, let's look at option A. Achieving court ruling through fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings. I really can't do that, right? It's redundant. I cannot start to combine these 2 sentences with this phrase. Why? Because achieving court ruling is already here through court rulings. So it's redundant in meaning, it's not making any logical sense. I can't say achieving court ruling through fixing the problems of democracy. I cannot even say achieving court ruling through fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved. How will I feed in the second sentence? Politics has to fix its own problems. So I have to rule out option A. What about option B? The political problems have what? The political problems have what? You can't actually connect it, no? Starting with that option B, how will you connect those 2 sentences? It's not making sense at all. The political problems have what? There is no political problems mentioned here. What it says is politics has to fix its own problems. And fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings. So how will I use option B? It doesn't make sense. Have what? I cannot take anything from the context and put it here. What about C? Democracy cannot be achieved. Okay, if I say democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings, how will I connect the next sentence? So it's a standalone sentence, right? How will I connect the next sentence? Democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings. Okay, so what do I do then? Politics has to fix its own problems through dialogues if possible, using logical extrapolations of troublesome arguments. So basically, the sentence as it is makes sense, right? If I have to join these 2 sentences, what I will put is fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings, and because of that, politics has to fix its own problems, right? So all I will do is what I can connect here is I have to start with this sentence only. Fixing the problems of democracy should be my starter. Cannot be achieved through court rulings, and because of that, right? And either I can say because, or I can say because of that, politics has, so politics has to fix its own problems through dialogues if possible, using logical explanations of troublesome arguments. So I cannot use any of these 3 to start the sentence and connect these 2 given sentences, right? Or I have to say Because fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings, politics has to fix its own problems. So the sentence connector that I can use is only in the middle of these two sentences. Then it makes sense. And none of these initiators can fit the context. So our answer will be E. I cannot use A, B or C. Are you following? So just to put it in context, I'm going to write the entire sentence here. So the reason is given in the second statement. The cause is given in the first statement. Fixing the problems of democracy cannot be achieved through court rulings. And because of that, politics has to fix its own problems. And everything else follows. Though dialogues if possible, blah, 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 blah. The subject is not political problems. The subject is problems of democracy. The objective behind this question type, all we are doing is trying to make a logical sequence, right? If I connect two separate sentences, how will I make it meaningful and grammatical at the same time? That is the objective of this question type. So you are given options, right? And here in this particular question type, the direction is very clear, saying, hey boss, the options that are given A, B, C, you have to use them as the starting point of the sentence. And then you have to connect the two sentences. And it has to make sense. So if there are no specific directions given, you can even use a connector in the middle of the sentence, right? Or somewhere where you can connect the two given sentences to make meaning. You change the entire construction, but it is still not retaining the core of the subject, right? That's important. You cannot take away the meaning that the context is giving. Yep. Let's look at a couple of more questions. Maybe you'll get the hang of it, right? Don't get perturbed or anxious that you're not following this. The more you practice on such questions, you'll have an idea. You'll get an idea, okay, this is what is expected from me in this question type. So let's look at a couple of more. In normal times, the grain mandi of Samrala is abuzz with the hum of agrarian commerce. These days, however, it lies virtually vacant, with only a handful of farmers coming to sell their produce. Again, I have three options. Again, my direction is very clearly saying, pick out the option that is A, B or C, which when used to start the sentence, combines both the above sentences into one. Okay, let's go. What do you think? Now try this one. Apply the same logic that we've done for the previous two questions and see if you are able to answer these. Just make sure it is meaningful. It's retaining the essence of these two sentences. Just ensure that is in place. So let's break down this sentence, this question a little more, okay? So they're saying in normal times the grain mandi of Samrala. So we're talking about a particular city, right? A place, Samrala, right? So keep that in mind. So you understand the context, right? Sentence 1 is saying normally this place is abuzz with the hum of agrarian commerce, but nowadays, right, there's a but. It's vacant. Why? Because only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce. So if I start the sentence with as only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their, I want you to give me the context actually. Let me not give you the answer. So everybody's given me different options. Let's look at it. I have to retain the essence of the two sentences. Hai na? So if I say, as only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce these days, it lies virtually vacant. But in normal times, the grain mandi of Samrala is abuzz with the hum of agrarian commerce. Can't I say that? Why can't I say that? Let's put this sentence here, right? If I say, as only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce, where? At the grain mandi, right? I can either have this here or I don't need to, but I'm combining both these sentences, right? As only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce, I can either include this here or leave it as it is, are coming to sell their produce. What is happening? Well, these days, right? They're coming to sell their produce these days. Let me put it here. Produce these days. Because I've mentioned it here at the grain mandi of Samrala, these days, it lies vacant, right? Or if I'm not putting at the grain mandi of Samrala here, I can say, as only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce these days, the mandi lies vacant, right? I can include the mandi here also. Instead of it, I can say the grain mandi of Samrala or the mandi lies vacant. But what is the scene in the normal times? But in normal times, it is abuzz. Now I can put the pronoun because I've already mentioned the grain mandi of Samrala. The subject has already been mentioned here, or I mention it here, right? So I can say, but in normal times, it remains or it is abuzz with the hum of agrarian commerce. So I can absolutely start the sentence with option A, right? Because the meaning is retained. I have both the sentences meaning, correct? Let's look at this again. As only a handful of the reason is why it is vacant is because, so reason is brought out by the conjunction as only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce these days, the mandi lies vacant, but in normal times it is abuzz with the hum of agrarian commerce. Both the sentences are, meaning is retained, whatever the sentences are trying to convey is there in the thing. So option A seems absolutely fine. What about option B? The grain mandi of Samrala lies vacant. When? These days. Why? Because only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce. But same thing. In normal times, the grain mandi of Samrala is abuzz with a, so I can use option B also. Not an issue. It is correct. So the same sentence that Preet has put in will apply. The grain mandi of Samrala lies vacant these days or virtually vacant these days. Why? Because only a handful of farmers are coming to sell their produce. Again, I use but like how I've used it in sentence A. But in normal times, it is abuzz with the hum of agrarian commerce. So B also will fit. A and B. What about C? Only the grain mandi. Now this doesn't make sense, right? What do you mean by only the grain mandi? What are you trying to say? We are talking about the grain mandi of a particular place, which is Samrala. So when I say only the grain mandi, it defeats the whole purpose of both the sentence meaning, right? Because it's the sentences are conveying, boss, what is happening now and what is the normal situation. So I cannot start the sentence with only the grain mandi because there is no reference to anything specific to the grain mandi. It just says, it talks about what is the situation in normal times and what is the situation these days, and the reasons are given. So C is incorrect, which means anything that has C and does not have both A and B together is incorrect, which is all of the options except A. We cannot connect C because of the word only the grain mandi, which doesn't make sense at all, because both the contexts are talking about what's happening in this place. Normal times it is abuzz, current days it is vacant. Yes, why not? As Faisal is going on leave next week, can you please substitute for him John? I just gave you a context with starting with as. As is just a conjunction, right? It gives me the expressing the meaning of reason, right? So I just gave you a context. As Faisal is going on leave next month, John, would you substitute for him, right? So guys, what I see here is either you're getting confused with the direction of the question, which Kirtika and a lot of other people clarified, which I think is a good thing, right? So let's recap what we've done for this question type. 1, the first confusion that all of you had is, hey, can we add words in between as long as we are using the options to start the sentence? Yes, you can, to answer that question. Confusion number 2. What was confusion number 2? There was only one confusion, right? Can we use other words in between to connect the two sentences? Yes, you can. As long as you're sticking to the direction. The direction only says from the given options, use the given options to start the sentence. And second thing is, you just need to ensure that the meaning is retained, right? The two sentences are conveying or expressing some meaning that has to be retained when you're connecting the two sentences, right? So if you are clear with this, you ideally should not have any confusion. So let's move on to our next question type. Don't worry, I didn't want to jam pack too many questions on the same type because it's good for us to have variety of questions, but we will look at this in the next session as well. Let's move on to our next one, which is synonym antonym questions, right? In SSC exams and all, if you see, they will say pick the option that is closest in meaning to the given word, or pick the option that is opposite in meaning to the given word. But slightly complicated version of the same thing will be, but you never know, because every exam is kind of upgrading themselves, right? Last year we had a lot of new questions introduced, so you need to be prepared. What if they ask this question? At least you'll know, okay, I have an idea. So in this variation, the question that we're going to see now is, options are given. It can either be a combination of synonyms, or it can either be a combination of antonyms, which means the option can either be a synonym to the given word, or it can be an antonym to the given word. Slightly difficult in terms of, it's only a little more time consuming if you ask me, right? We have to be very careful to not pick the wrong option. Let's look at the question type. Let's look at the next one. Same thing, when used to start a sentence, combines both the above sentences into one. So what is my sentence 1? The process of getting Indians to invest in equity is a journey, not a destination. This is sentence 1. Sentence 2. Every year their participation into the markets is going up. This is sentence 2. So every year their participation. Whose participation? Indians. Okay. If there is no specific direction, you can probably, you have the liberty to choose any of the ways or any of the options. For Indians, it is destination. We can completely rule out A because it very clearly says it's not a destination, right? So obviously I can't choose option A. Are you following? Let's go step by step, right? Let's rule out the incorrect ones. For Indians, it is destination. No, the context is saying, boss, the process of getting Indians to invest in equity is a journey, not a destination. So I will happily rule out option A. What about option B? However, Indians' participation, okay. However, Indians' participation into the market is going up. So when will I use however? I need a context preceding this, right? And this context, shouldn't it be preceding however? And I cannot actually start the sentence with however. However, Indians' participation into the market is going up. See, because this is only giving me this is the effect, right? The consequence of something. The consequence of an action. Which means I cannot use. So that's why we need to pay attention to the direction. The direction is saying pick out the option which when used to start a sentence. I've underlined it, right? Combines both the above sentences into one. I can use your sentence if this direction was not there. But I'm going to rule out option B because for me, I need to have a pretext before however to explain why Indians' participation into the market is going up, and I cannot start the sentence with however Indians' participation to combine these two sentences to make complete meaning. But let's look at option C again. That's the only one that is left, right? It is only a journey. Okay, it is only a journey, not a destination. Okay, I can say that. For what? For the process of getting Indians to invest in equity. Yeah. So in the C context, I can still make sense because it gives me some sort of a connection. So if I say it is only a journey and not a destination, yeah, for what? The process, for the process of getting Indians to invest in equity, right? How will I combine the other sentence? And the reason why we can say that, see, I said this is an effect. This is a consequence of the pretext, which is the first sentence, right? So as a result of that, right? So the only connector that I can use here is as every year their participation into the market is going up. Now this makes sense. It is only a journey, not a destination for the process of getting Indians to invest in equity. Why? As every year, this is the result, this is the consequence that we see. As every year, their participation into the market is going up. So it is more of a journey for them and not a destination. Yeah. So option C, yes, I can start with this sentence, with this phrase and still connect both these sentences. It will still make meaning. It is grammatically correct. Both ways, I don't have a problem. If when you are combining these two sentences, you have to use this option to start the sentence. You can use other words in between. Yeah, so it's only C. Yes, Because the direction, if you go back to the direction, it says pick out the option which when used to start a sentence combines both the above sentences into one. And if you look at the pattern of this question type, if you go online and check out other sentence connectors or phrases, ideally you would see other words added to make sense, to complete the meaning of the two sentences grammatically and meaningfully. Right? So this is something that you can do, but all you need to keep in mind is pay attention to the direction. Yeah, this one very clearly says use these phrases to start while you connect these two sentences.